name is Shaz Akram, and I'm the founder of HerPivot, an independent career mentorship organization that promotes stories of incredible women in the mid to executive level leadership roles. HerPivot seeks to facilitate a platform for inspiring and empowering women, offering career advice, mentorship, and networking opportunities advancing women's leadership. Listen to stories from professional women globally to make your pivot within limited professional opportunities. I'm delighted to be joined in conversation with Asha Castleberry-Hernandez. She's participating in this interview in her personal capacity, and her views do not necessarily reflect her institutional affiliations. Welcome. We're delighted to have you today.
Thank you.
Asha Castleberry has an incredible bio. I don't even know how to begin talking about her entire bio. We're going to try and encompass as much about what she's done in as small a bio as possible today. She's a distinguished national security and foreign policy expert, a United States Army veteran, and a former U.S. Congressional candidate. Asha joined the Biden-Harris administration as a senior official at the Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs at the Department of State. She has served as the senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary. She previously served as the Kuwait desk officer at U.S. Army Central. She worked on security cooperation with the Office of Military Cooperation and the Kuwait Ministry of Defense. In addition, Asha served as a senior key leadership engagement officer for the Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve in Iraq and Kuwait. During the Obama administration, Asha previously served at the U.S. mission at the United Nations, working peacekeeping operations in the African continent. Currently, Asha is a major in the U.S. Army Reserves. Asha has also taught foreign policy, international affairs, and U.S. national security at Fordham University, George Washington University, and Baruch College. She's a term member at the Council on Foreign Relations, a former Robert J. Mayers Fellow at the Carnegie Council on Ethic and International Affairs, Adjunct Fellow at the American Security Project, Fellow at Foreign Policy Interrupted, and former Senior Associate at Center for International and Strategic Studies. She's a graduate from Hampton University and holds a master's in international affairs at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. Asha studied law and business in China with Syracuse University and international security at the University of Oxford. She has been recognized as one of the top national security experts in the New Foundation America and Diversity in National Security Network African American list. She has also served as the Chief of Staff for the Biden for President presidential campaign and ran for a congressional seat in New York District 17. Welcome, Asha.
Thank you.
So, with that, we start our conversation today. What inspires you to work within the field of foreign policy and national security?
Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this wonderful interview. I'm so delighted to be here. And I truly believe that women like me should definitely continuously promote our voice. So thank you for providing this wonderful, opportunity to do so today.
Thank you.
What inspires me? Well, I'll go back to when I was 16 years old, a New Yorker here, when 9/11 happened. I remember like it was yesterday when I watched, the building, the second building that was hit, the Twin Towers. And I just remember that moment, just being in New York, watching the planes going down the Hudson River and heading towards the Twin Towers to provide support. And just after that moment, watching that happen and then shifting to where a lot of Americans like me wanted to serve in some sort of public servant position, that's what inspired me to go in. And then beyond that point, I joined the Reserve Officer Training Corps, which I earned a scholarship to join the Army ROTC program. And then during my junior year, I pursued my first study abroad program in Shanghai, China. And that also inspired me to become a public servant or be more involved in international affairs, foreign policy, national security. Um, in Shanghai, I learned about the world in a more strategic predictability future perspective that wow, the rise of China is going to be a change maker or a game changer in the international system, and this is a country that we're going to have to deal with on a bigger scale. It's going to drive just so many different things and different aspects and different domains within the international system. And it's something that I definitely would love to study and learn about. So, excuse me. So those are the two aspects: join the military and also learn about the future of China.
In what ways is professional work within foreign affairs changing?
Yes, great question. Well, just as I mentioned to you, 9/11 was the first campaign, national foreign policy campaign that I participated in. It was about counterterrorism work, right? Where you saw that the United States was part of counterterrorism work from dealing with Afghanistan all the way to Iraq. And so I became part of that generation where I pursued a deployment in the Middle East, mainly in Kuwait and Iraq, working on security cooperation, counterterrorism. Then now you're starting to see where there's a shift, especially after 2018, with Secretary of Defense James Mattis, he pretty much presented a new concept called the era of strategic competition, where now it's more focused on United States being more engaged with competing against Russia and China. So what does that mean? That means that the United States now has a new priority where they're prioritizing countering Russia and China, their near-peer competitors, especially China, who is perceived as the enduring threat. So now you're seeing where more time, attention, and resources is being poured more into that than counterterrorism. We are still involved in counterterrorism work, as you can see, especially after October 7th, but we're also involved in prioritizing strategic competition.
So it's a tough field for women.
Yes.
Think about some of the challenges you have faced in your career. Can you give me an example of something that might count as one of the biggest challenges you have faced?
Yes. Women not supporting women. Women looking like me that are older, not supporting me. And I was off guard, knowing that I did not receive that support. But it wasn't just no support, it was detrimental to my career. And that happened to me twice, in the Army and also in another federal organization. We need to do better with supporting each other, especially with the older generation supporting the younger generation. I would like to see more of that, especially when it comes to sponsorship. So I never really received that. I've received more sponsorship from men than women. And it's interesting because when we go to conferences and summits on women, talking about women empowerment work, we don't really talk about what are we doing to each other that we could do a lot better off, right? And we fail to talk about that and provide recommendations, but we still have a long way to go with women supporting women, and that unfortunately has been a big a hurdle for me in my career.
I laughed because that is a very common strain in a lot of women's stories, narratives about toxic work environments, not being pulled up, not being mentored. I don't understand why women don't support each other more. The few that do really pull up other women, but it's very few and far between. Which is one of the reasons I started this platform, to have a support system for women at different career levels. Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Detailed answer, actually, and candid response. In your opinion, what are the most pressing issues facing national security today? Why is it important for women to be involved in resolving these issues?
Yes, thank you. Well, again, as mentioned to you before, we're now engaged in the era of strategic competition. And that's just not just about military intelligence. It also involves soft power work like economics, technology. So when it comes to economic security, I think more women need to be involved in that aspect, like you mentioned earlier about the Secretary of Commerce. We need to be at the table making those decisions because we still have some issues involving, equal pay. Us being at the table where we represent at the World Bank or major economic agreements. We need more women involved in those type of negotiations because we're still receiving some sort of setbacks when it comes to economic security compared to men. So I think that's the biggest hurdle. Now, going to the hard security piece, I think we also need to be at the table there too as well. As you can see, conflicts flare up. Who would have known October 7th would have happened? And usually in conflicts, when you look in these areas of conflict areas, a bulk of the population tend to be women and children. So if that's the case, then we need to be at the table, being part of more of the decision making. And I still to this day see that there's a lack of representation of us still at the table.
So, I mean, and there's, I don't know whether you've noticed this, but whenever there's a crisis situation in a company or a corporation or in government, women are brought in to resolve the issue.
Yes.
Yeah, so many of the new CEOs are coming in to fix defunct companies or companies that
Yes.
are having internal, challenges, so to speak. One is Boeing,
Right.
where a woman has come in. It's interesting that that could be seen as a strength, but it's also limiting women in developing their own voice.
Right.
Would you have anything to add to that or
Well,
share?
last time we met, we were at the World Bank, and I
Yes.
talked about or underscore the issue with undermining women in leadership. So when they have these type of experiments of, oh, the first woman serving as the CEO, well, let's help her succeed, right? Let's make sure we don't undermine her leadership because that does exist where the first will come in, but there's this internal strategy to make sure that that person does not succeed so they could say later on, oh, we tried and it doesn't work. So we have to make sure that a woman that does represent the highest level succeeds. And then also, too, we have to make sure we recruit the right female. Not all women are CEO, good CEO representation. So we have to make sure, okay, we're just not throwing someone in so we could say this is the first, but we have to make sure it's the right one, the one that has the talent, the character to succeed in that position.
So that segues into my other question is that how can we increase representation of women in the defense and security space?
Yes, thank you. Well, what I love about the 21st century is that you're seeing a proliferation of civil society organizations that are calling out the representation and using public pressure to ensure that government does include more women at the table. Now, it's effective somewhat, but what we're seeing more is that they're measuring the progress. They're looking at who's where, and then they call out, based on a letter to Congress. We need to make sure that more women are represented. They're not there. The same thing with Congress too. We have to make sure that they hold these agencies or federal organizations accountable to ensure that we have representation. Accountability matters, but unfortunately, what we're seeing now in Congress, because of the political polarization, accountability is kind of shaky right now in ensuring that we have that representation here. But we have to make sure that Congress executes accountability, measures progress when it comes to representation of women.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you. How do you see the role of women in the defense sector evolving in the future, and what opportunities and challenges do you anticipate for women seeking leadership positions and influence in this sector?
Yes, thank you for that wonderful question. Well, I'll give you one example. This is more of a uniform example. During the Obama administration, in terms of maternal health or child care, there was a personnel policy change where after having a child, you can sit out for 6 months until you come back to service and serve again, because we know of all the child, just had a child, right? Excuse me. So before that, during the Bush administration, I've seen where women had a child and then they were thrown into a deployment like a week later. That is just not acceptable. So now what you're seeing with the Biden administration, they have now, I think, extended from 6 months to a year. So there's this adaptation, understanding, realistic policy kicking in full gear when it comes to helping out women as far as child care, maternal health, and it's being more realistic, more adaptive to the kind of challenges that we deal with. So I think that is really good when it comes to a way forward, heading in the right direction. Um, and as far as opportunities, that helps produce more opportunities because the more women see that, okay, DOD is accommodating us, the more they likely would like to join the Pentagon or serve in uniform. And then once they're there, they can help produce programs to help recruit women in and better retain them too as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just read an article in The Economist last night about the remote husband. And the wives are going out, the husbands are staying home and logging in. And it's the tech security field.
Yes.
So it's an interesting shift happening there.
Yes.
So, Asha, can you share successful policies, practices, or firsthand experiences that have effectively promoted gender equality and heightened female participation in leadership?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would say, and this is more tactical, I haven't really read a policy that underscores sponsorship, but sponsorship, men sponsoring women. I think that has been the most successful approach to helping women. Men have sponsored me, and that has been a successful experiment. I remember when I was deployed overseas, I've had generals sponsor me in front of other uniformed men, and that helped me better facilitate my work as a desk officer and also as a senior leadership engagement officer. So men coming in to help sponsor women is a great solution, and maybe we should turn that into some sort of piece of legislation or policy because it's effective. Mm-hmm.
Oh, excellent. Your bio includes reference to working with Foreign Policy Interrupted.
Yes.
It sounds like a fascinating organization and perhaps one that many in our audience might not be familiar with. Can you tell me more about your time and work there?
Yes. I love Foreign Policy Interrupted. Pretty much we learned about how to train and engage with media opportunities, whether it's op-ed writing as well as doing media interviews, and also promoting our voices and doing panel discussions. So it's about promoting our voices overall in foreign policy.
Women's voices.
Yes. And during that time, when the organization was founded, there was a lot of atmospherics discussed at New America Foundation with Anne-Marie Slaughter about the lack of women representation in this field. So the founders actually thought of a way on how we can promote women in the media because they feel that this is a powerful tool and the representation of women in the media is really bad. So I went through the fellowship program, training, and the training was great. And then after my completion of the program, I ended up with my first interview with an international news outlet called I-24 News. It's an Israeli news outlet. It's wonderful. And I did about 100 interviews on just Middle Eastern security. And they loved me because of the fact that I just came out of my deployment. And so I knew a lot about the Middle Eastern dynamics in terms of security, with the Arabian Peninsula all the way up to Afghanistan. So they asked me questions about all sorts of different types of security policy work there.
Oh, I'm very fascinating.
Thank you.
Can you share any experiences or challenges you've faced as a woman in leadership positions and how you work to overcome barriers or biases?
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, yes, I have experienced someone trying to undermine my leadership. And it was brought to my attention that you have people doing this to you. And so as far as my solution, initially I ignored it because I don't really like to be engaged in drama at work. But then repeatedly, it was told to me that this is happening. So I did confront the people that did this to me. And the outcome of that decision, I would say there was a cost and a benefit. The cost was that it didn't really resolve it, but the benefit was that they were aware that I was aware of the problem. I see that women go through that more than men in terms of undermining our leadership. So I've experienced it myself, and it's just unfortunate. And I wish there's like more no tolerance policies in place internally in an institution to address that issue.
Thank you for being candid about that. I know it's hard to talk about problems we face in our careers. I have faced many, being undermined as well. But the best is, how you get out of it and how you stay above the fray and move forward.
Yes.
So the next question I have for you is, why is it hard? And this is a critical question because, it's the foreign policy and national security field. Why is it hard for women to build a career in those fields? There's, sort of like a bottleneck for opportunities in this male-dominated sector. I mean, really, if there were more women in the foreign policy field, I think we would have less wars and less conflicts. And women just have a different feel for conflict. They're even getting deeply involved in climate discussions as well, which leads to other, all other kinds of conflicts. How can mid-career and senior level executives, I guess this is my specific question, navigate this sector if they wanted to transition or start from a different field, so to speak?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Well,
sorry, it's long-winded. You can sort of break it down in why it's, difficult and bottleneck for opportunities.
Well, I will tell you, still to this day, all the way up to the top, it is homogeneous where a bulk of white men run the foreign policy apparatus. And you're seeing where they play duck, duck, goose, like Admiral Mullen says. They pick people that they like, they get along with it, and it's usually people that looks like them. And so when it comes to putting someone in a position, it's not necessarily about they're the most talented. It's just I know them, I'm comfortable with them, I trust them, and we want them there. So some of it's not merit based. It's more of I'm comfortable with people that look like me and that I hang out with. So and a lot of women are cut out from that process. So one way to do it is to help each other. Like for instance, during the Obama administration, Susan Rice and also ODNI Director Avril Haines and many other women noticed that when they were in the Situation Room in the White House, they kind of struggled to promote their voice. They were cut out in the conversations. So what they did, they all came together and said, okay, when I say something, I want you to echo it, and then I want you to echo it. And then that's how that worked for them, and that helped empower them and to a point where even to be considered for higher jobs. So they empowered each other's voices. I hope I answered your question, but I think that, yes, the challenge is that we just don't have enough support and not enough sponsorship. I know I keep saying the same word, but again, the apparatus is still run by predominantly white male men who, I said that, white men, excuse me, that look out for each other a lot better than women too.
I mean, sponsorship is an interesting term. I don't think many of our audience have ever, might have even heard of that term, but it's a critical term.
Yes.
Alignment and backing from someone who supports your work gets your name out.
Yes.
Recommendations come flowing through.
Yes. And they're very overt about it.
Right.
Right? They're not afraid to say in a boardroom, I sponsor this person and I'm putting them here in this position. So they have full-blown confidence in that person. They look out for them throughout the process. And boy, I only received that kind of support like twice in my entire career.
That's incredible. It's a good advice to share. What advice would you give women in finding the right organizational fit and aligning their personal values with the mission and goals of the organization they lead and work for?
Yes. Um, Foreign Policy Foreign Policy Interrupted is a great organization. Please apply for the fellowship. My organization, Diversity and National Security Network, we are really big on providing resources to help women. Also, there's plenty other like NGOs out there that the UN Women that fall under UN Women that can help support you too when it comes to international affairs, foreign affairs work, but more NGO, international organization focus. And that's the only I can think of off the top of my head right now. I mean, I've tried other organizations and they're just not good. And they are women organizations, but I can only go by the ones that I just know that have worked for me.
Can you share any resources or opportunities for professional development and skill building that women of color can take advantage of to enhance their qualifications for leadership roles?
Yes.
Particularly, I mean, you've answered part of that in the first question, but anything else you could add to it?
Yes. So I would adapt to the significant changes that are happening in the 21st century, whether you're looking at tech, like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. I think that's very important to note. And you don't have to just do it in government. You can also pursue a startup focusing on these type of skill sets. I will also look into becoming an economist. That's really big right now, especially with the strategic competition going on between the United States and China. And then also you're starting to see where there's this interest of no longer using the U.S. dollar in the future. That's really important too as well. And the rise of cryptocurrency. So we need more people well versed in these new issues, emerging global issues. Other skill sets I would look into as well as like robotics, drone warfare. That's still going to be of existence. You see that right now with when it comes to October 7th with the Israeli-Hamas conflict, where just recently with the drone strikes, et cetera, that's going to be an evolution where they're going to be more and more sophisticated in terms of utilization of drone warfare. So we need more women smart in that too as well. Become more fluent when it comes to other domains outside of land, air, and sea. Like for instance, the Arctics is something that we need to start investing and get smart on. Still online, like I mentioned to you, cybersecurity. Just think of more of the non-traditional national security emerging issues. Think outside of the military intelligence piece and look into more of the softer security issues. Like for instance, COVID-19 has now produced more health security professionals. You see at the State Department where I think they already stood up a Bureau on Health Diplomacy or Health Security. We need more professionals in that aspect too, where now you're seeing the intersection with health and security at the same time. So think more about those non-traditional soft power issues and get smart on it.
Yeah, very good advice. So we come to the end of our interview, and this is, I think, the most incredible question. Reflecting on your extraordinary career, what have been your most challenging lessons and gratifying moments?
Well, being deployed in the Middle East for such a long time, pursuing a deployment for 36 months, being away from my family to help protect my country was very difficult for me because I was away from home. But it was an amazing experience too at the same time. Learning about different cultures, learning about people, learning about a region that you shouldn't just learn about it through Hollywood. Picking up the language, learning about the beautiful culture of just the Gulf region and beyond that. So it was so fascinating and still lives with me to this day of that kind of work. And I would recommend it to every single woman out there. Go out and get in the field. Get out there in the world. Do some field work in different countries. Work with different people.
Join the Peace Corps.
Yes, join the Peace Corps. Become a foreign service officer. Looking to join the military. I think you're more effective as a foreign policy and national security professional when you have completed some sort of field work, because you could bring that back home to isolated America. And I just, I see more effectiveness in those professionals that have been out there. So when they are crafting policy in Washington, their perspective is sharper because of the kind of practices that they've executed in the field. So I would say that's extremely important.
Thank you so much for that answer. Here I am. I'm a Fulbright specialist and about to hopefully get approved to go and work at a university in Pakistan, in Lahore, Kanate College, faculty development for 6 weeks. And I'm thinking, beautiful. How am I going to leave my 7-year-old? And how am I going to stay 6 weeks away from her? And you spent 36 months.
Yes.
It is a hard field, but ultimately satisfying, and your family does get to enjoy some part of the global travel if you're a foreign service officer.
Right.
Serving in another country, and that is crucial for everyone. We say that to students, so professionals should serve and work in another country, definitely. Well, Asha, it's such a delight to have you on HerPivot storytelling platform. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to inviting you for another interview in the future.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.